Good evening, and welcome to this, I guess it's a non-lecture in our lecture series. Suresh wanted to try a different format and make it more of an interactive discussion, Q&A type of session. So we were very happy to indulge him. I want to welcome Suresh Kalpathi. He's a BTech Electrical from 1986, and he's also currently the chairman and CEO of Kalpathi Investments. I think you'd have all seen the bio that I circulated, so I'm not going to go through that again. I just want to say that on a personal basis, I've been interacting with Suresh now for the last 4 or 5 years, and he has come through for us on several occasions. We have had times when we went to him with some reasonably urgent financial need, and he was quickly able to fulfill that need for us. For example, the new digital projector in OAT, he was one of the people that provided the funding to make that happen. And more recently, the Gerard Fisher basketball tournament, he funded one of the prizes. Apart from providing these types of financial aids, he has also been very willing to come on campus when invited for various activities, specifically mentoring type of activities for our students who are interested in entrepreneurship. He's been willing to give off his time, which to me is sometimes much more difficult than giving money. I should also mention that he's very active in the IIT Club. He's actually the president of the IIT Club and has galvanized the club in that role. And some of you may be aware that the IIT Club will soon be relocating to much grander premises in the Research Park Phase 2. And he's again playing a stellar role in lining up support and financing for that to happen. So Suresh is, to me, is an incredibly committed person, and once he makes up his mind to do something, he does it to the fullest measure. And we are very happy that he is here today to talk to you guys, and hopefully you'll have a lot of interesting questions for him to try and answer. Welcome.
Everyone, so the format would be, first we would be taking the questions which were submitted online by the form which is circulated by the email, and after which we'll open the floor for questions. So just a personal request from my side and Professor Nagaraj and Suresh sir. Since it's a purely informal session, it would be really great if some of you could come forward. There are a lot of seats in the front. Yeah, like 2 minutes to relocate. Thank you so much. So, so the first and most obvious question to you would be, why this lecture? As in, Professor Nagarajan had asked you, but why do you think this kind of lecture would be valuable for students?
Are you able to hear me? Yeah, okay. I think that's a question I should have asked Professor Nag first of all, but I did not. Because I was sure it was not a question that I did an answer for. I think I'm here for a couple of reasons. One is to obviously I put down a lot of where I am today to what I have learned at the institute. So I think it's important for me to come back and do what bit that I could for the institute, just apart from giving money, but to share some of my own experiences. And I think the second factor would be to hopefully, tell people here that, studying in this institute pays. It can take you places. So I've learned a lot of things which has helped me go somewhere, and hopefully it will be a right example and allow people to have something to follow up.
So could you tell us a little bit about your institute life? Like you told me that you were in the Saraswati hostel. How was it there? Your friends, fun memories?
I actually did first year I was at Mandak, so not exactly Saras, but third, fourth, second Saras. Great memories. I had a couple of people from school who moved on with me. One of them was staying next to my room. Lot of great memories, but one of them which I would like to sort of talk about here, I think some of the people who were in my batch, like GK, Suresh Kumar, he was in my school and then we came together in IIT. So Saras I was in room number 342, so second floor, left off, and there was a guy there, I don't want to give names, but very successful guy. Obviously I was not doing too much of reading, too much of attending classes, so I was always behind on taking notes. And so before the exams, this guy sort of reads up, and I borrow the notes along with 3-4 of us. We borrow his notes at about 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock in the night, and try and slog through the night preparing for the next day's exam. And obviously somewhere he realized that we were starting to do as much, if not better than him. So he was not very comfortable giving, but obviously he didn't want to bluntly say I can't give it to you. But one of these days he had his own reasons. He said I forgot to read, and I got to stay up and read and stuff like that. We obviously know he's not going to stay up and read. So when he went down to the mess for his dinner, so we collected about 10-12 alarm clocks from the entire wing. And these are the old ones, you key it, it makes a hell of a lot of noise when it comes on. So we put one inside his bucket and put some old clothes on top so he wouldn't know. We put one in the rack, we put one under his bed. So we had all 12 of them very strategically placed that you couldn't see it. And this was said starting from 10 o'clock in the night till 6 in the morning, like every 20 minutes, one will keep going. And on top of that, just to divert his attention, when he went down, we carried his bike all the way up and placed it upside down on his bed and switched off the lights, and we went down for dinner. So we went to this place called Quark, which used to be like so we didn't go to the mess. So we went there, had our usual, milkshake, an omelette, and quietly came back. By the time there was a huge ruckus in the wing because this guy exactly knew who did it, but he couldn't put down his, on it. So he wouldn't talk to us. So we obviously couldn't even talk to him about the notes. So we just went quietly sitting in our room, chatting, 4-5 of us. And then 10 o'clock, the first one went off. Obviously, this guy was not studying. He went to sleep at 9 o'clock. This guy locks his door, hangs clothes, so you can't even see behind the closed window. So it went off. And all of us sitting and, we came running and said, what's happening? Why are you not? Obviously, he couldn't say he was sleeping because he was supposed to be studying, right? So he found the alarm clock, he said, I don't know who did this, getting angry. He kept it out. I think by the 7th alarm clock, he started throwing them from the 2nd floor. He found, threw it down. So after that, for almost 1 year, he refused to talk to us. He still didn't know who did it, but he refused to talk to us. But after that, we obviously made a great friend, very successful guy is in Bangalore now. Beyond that, no indications. So still remember the incident.
So how was your academic life at IIT Madras? Were you like a 9-pointer or?
Middling along. Did well in most of the core courses. Way behind in engineering drawing and workshops. Completely behind. No clue at all. So, this is sort of confidential, and I don't think my grades can get impacted now, but I can share some of this. So, this is engineering drawing class, exams. I hardly went to these classes. So, I had a guy who was behind me, this huge desk and drafter and, doing. I didn't even want to understand the question. So, I would take a divider, measure exactly what he had done, come measure it, draw the line, measure, draw. And somewhere down the line, I didn't even realize he had finished one and he had put a new drawing on top. I kept on doing. So, obviously, I got a D, which I was pretty surprised to get. So, most of my engineering drawing went for a toss. We had workshop, 3 sessions, went for a toss. I did okay, I think.
And how were your, were you part of any extracurricular activities on campus?
I was playing basketball. I used to play basketball at school, came here, played basketball. We went to, I think we went to games in IIT Kanpur, and then Madras hosted one of the inter-IIT games, so there I participated. So, second and third year, fourth year I couldn't go, but second and third year I was there. We had a damn bad side, otherwise I couldn't have gotten. So, we used to go to Loyola for the Bertram tournaments, and we used to just get walloped. We went for the inter-IIT games, we used to win. But you go for the serious competitions, you get valid. So I was for about 3 years, the basketball team.
So how relevant this academic success or involvement in extracurricular activities to entrepreneurial success?
I think what you learn from playing any game, usually a team sport is far better than an individual game like tennis. But even there, so few things you understand are you understand that working together as a team is a lot more rewarding, lot more value creating than trying to do it all by yourself. 2, you also realize that even if you don't know, you learn a new skill, you persevere, then there is a satisfaction of achievement at the end. It doesn't matter whether it's academic skill or a skill, whatever it is, if you put your mind, you can learn. And that's a very quiet confidence that any game will bring you. And obviously it helps in entrepreneurship because you're pretty much jumping into it with everything you got, with what you think you know. And obviously at every turn there are huge surprises. And what keeps you going is the confidence that you can learn and end of the day you will achieve. And that sort of keeps you going. Yeah, so it helps, any sport.
So, sir, what is your rationale in basically going about different kinds of business? You're part of the film industry, went into IT. So, how did you decide which industry to get into and how did you achieve success in everything?
I think I need to qualify each one differently. Going into investing was a very conscious decision to do investments. I like to see people succeed. And for me, it's a very quiet satisfaction that your strategy worked rather than what's in it in terms of money or value. Film industry is so an altogether different way we got it. So initially, there was somebody who came by, whom we knew well. This guy, in fact, was a gold medalist from Anna University, who became a director. So I spoke to him. Seemed like a nice guy, wanted to do a movie, and had a script. So we actually financed him doing a movie, not actually producing. So we sort of like the distraction. So keeps you occupied, during those hours when you have nothing else to do. So we actually went on to produce our first movie. Then we started getting a hang of how this whole thing works. Then we started producing a few more. I think now we are at a point where we are producing more than what we are comfortable with. I think this year we currently have 7 movies under production. not comfortable at all.
Any plans on acting?
Not really at all. But I think in the entertainment industry, what we learnt and what it's amazing that people have not learnt in that industry is there's a whole lot of pizzazz in that industry. There's a lot of make-believe. If you're not able to see through it very, very quickly, then the industry can put you through the mill and crush and throw you out. So the second most important is, unlike a lot of belief that the industry produces way too many movies, and the general statistic is 90% of the movies lose money. That's a general statistic of the industry. It's so amazing that you don't have to. If you believe that making a 20-25% returns on your investment is an incredibly big number in the real outside world. It's not easy to make a 25% return on investment, and unfortunately in that industry a lot of people don't even want to understand it. So they go by the fact saying, let's do it ourselves, this is going to be a blockbuster, this is going to be big. It's very important that you talk the language but don't believe it yourself, and that the industry amazingly does not do it.
So a little bit more about the film industry. So which was your favorite film among the ones you produced?
I think in terms of, for people who see movies, in terms of what we liked as an entire family liked doing was Santosh Subramaniam. It's a remake from a Hindi movie called Bommarilu. We loved it because it had a message for all age groups, for all audiences, and it said it with a lot of humor, so it was easy. In terms of value, how directed, we liked a movie called Yuddham Sai, done extremely well, I think. The movie I like for different other reasons is Matran, which was a Surya movie, where we made the maximum money. So we like that movie too.
So was the IIT education in any way helpful to see through the pizzazz which the industry holds?
Absolutely. I think one of the things that you learn at IIT is you look at everything as cons. You don't just take it at face value. You're always critical. I mean, you talk to any IITian. Always very critical, not willing to get convinced so easily, always believing that there is something behind the scene that is not being told. It comes very naturally. And in this industry, all of that is absolutely required. I think the second learning is, and I wouldn't say from IIT, but from general business, when you see money on the table, this is something that I always say. People say, take it and walk away. In this industry, you take it and run. You just take it and vamos, you vanish. That helps enormously in this industry, and it's helped. But the other facets of the industry are, the exhibition business where you do theaters. They are very sustainable, predictable business models which you can grow. So currently we have 2 which are running, we have 2 under construction, we have 2 more that we are acquiring. So we are sort of expanding that because it's a very clean business model, capital intensive but significant cash flows. So that's good. The other one is a studio, which is a great business model. Again, predictable, sustainable business model. So we are in the process of setting up a studio near Madurai. And then the film financing. We are still trying to understand how that whole thing works. Still not gotten our hands around it because it seems messy, but there is money to be made there if somebody puts in a good business model.
So before I move to the technical questions and questions about entrepreneurship, would any of you have any more questions for sir?
So I'm Prasanna and I'm a second year student here. When we get into IIT, we choose our branch without too much research or without too much information. But do you think the course is structured in such a way that at the end of 4 years, our opportunities are still open and we still have a lot of options despite being in a certain branch?
I don't want to give you any all-knowing type of answer, but I'll share with you my own experience. So when I completed and came to IIT for counseling, I had an All India 101 as a rank, and my mom and dad came. My uncle and aunt had come, and I think between collectively among all four of them, none of them have gone beyond 12th standard. So obviously they had a very limited understanding of options and opportunities. And while coming and crossing the basketball court and taking the corner, I found a couple of my friends from school who were there. So I asked my father to stop the car, took my cycle out and went off with them. So I was not even there for the counseling. The only thing I told them was that, choose anything, but I'm going to be in Madras. So don't get me anything outside, I'm not going. So that's how I got into doing electronics. So it was not even by design. It was not even knowing what I was getting into or thinking that I knew and got into the wrong one. I had no clue at all. That's obviously oversimplifying, but obviously you choose a field with the knowledge that you have, you build, you work. Given where the current India stance is, you probably have an opportunity anything that you do from IIT. It doesn't matter what you do. I used to know when we joined that something like an aeronautical was seen as right at the bottom of the table. Today aeronautical is one of the most booming business in the country. You do aeronautical, you will get the best jobs, plum jobs. So anything that you do, you are going to get a great job. But I think what you learn getting into IIT is being able to swim against extreme stiff competition, and knowing that end of 4 years you are still out there and you made it through, and you learn a lot of things in life just this 4 years, apart from what you will learn in your own department and classes and courses. All of that to me was an add-on.
So any more questions? Oh, sorry. Yeah. So I'll get back to the questions. Sorry.
Hi, my name is Praneeth. There are two theories with respect to the correlation between multiplexes and malls. There is one school of thought which says they need to, go together, they have to feed on one another's footfalls. And another theory which says multiplexes should, move away from the dependence from their dependence on malls. Your word on this concept?
Good question. Couple of them. One is because a movie theater, because you got shows going every 2.5 hours, and if you have 2,000 seats, then probably you're going to rotate 8 to 10,000 people a day, just coming and going out of movies. And if you notice, in almost all the malls, both the box office could possibly be on the ground floor, or part of the box office on the ground floor. The theaters are always on the topmost floor. So it sort of ensures that you walk through the mall to reach the theater, and the idea is it generates footfalls and maybe some interest, and maybe these guys will come back on a different day and buy some stuff in the mall. So that's the idea. And usually as a theater owner, you obviously would negotiate for the best rates. So you get some of the best rates almost like an anchor client of the mall. Now, having said that, how does this whole thing work? I think it works best for the theater owners. It does not work that well for the mall. Couple of reasons are both ways. For instance, you go in to see a movie. A movie is a very planned affair in India. It's not like you walk by landmark, you see a book, and impulse you purchase a book. You don't impulse see a movie. You can't afford to. It's 3 hours, so there is no impulse about a movie. So it is very different from a mall experience where a lot of people, you have a cup of coffee, you see something, you buy a book, you buy a card, you remember somebody's birthday, impulse. The movie is not an impulse. The second one is when people come for movies, usually if the movie is at 7, people are there by about 6:30, 6:45. People don't come for a 7 o'clock movie at 4 and do a whole lot of shopping and then go into a theater. Generally they don't do that. And usually when the movie gets over, maybe they will stay back at the food court to have dinner, otherwise people go back home. Sitting 3 hours in a dark room and hopefully it's not such a bad movie, you want to be back home. So they are really like chalk and cheese. They don't really go together. But theater owners benefit much more by the mall than the rest of the mall occupants because of the presence of a theater.
There is also this current problem where stagnation in growth of malls is hurting the expansion of multiplex industry. Does that kind of have an effect on multiplexes moving out of malls?
If the view is that you want to set up your multiplexes in the malls, and if the number of malls are not coming, then obviously it stagnates your business. But the moment you are able to think out of the box saying, heck, 20 years ago, most of the theaters were standalone structures. They never needed a mall to do business, then it's not a stumbling block. So apart from one, the other one that we have is standalone. 2 more that we are putting up are all standalones. They are not inside malls. So you don't have to tie yourself too much with a mall, but if you are able to buy the property and not rent it, then as a theater owner you got a good one going.
Yeah. So we'll move back to the online questions. So the next one was, what prompted you to create the technology arm of SSI Technologies as a line of business along with SSI Education? So it would be good if you could tell about the ventures as well, just in case students haven't read the bio.
I think the sort of time gap between the two of them was about 7 to 8 years. So from your question, it sort of looks that we did this, then tack back to back we did. We actually didn't do back to back. It took us 7-8 years to sort of do the technology part of it. So we started our education business in 91. The technology business was started in 98. So that was sort of the time gap between the two. In terms of where the idea came from, the question could have been, why did this idea not come earlier? Because it's a very obvious thing. Because of the areas in which we provided training, right from day one we knew the lot of people that we trained really joined companies like a TCS or a Wipro or a HCL. Most of them went en masse into these companies. We used to train a whole lot of people from these companies who would come to us for corporate training. So we knew that these are the guys who would get the best value. A number of our students who had actually worked for these companies, gone abroad, used to actually talk to me, write to me saying, I'm currently in Cupertino, I work at Sun Microsystems, I'm Redwood Shores, I'm working at Oracle, and sir, next time you come, you should come to our home, talk. So I knew where these guys were going. And having worked in the US for 4-5 years before I started SSI, I knew the type of rates that it was going at. And I knew what these guys were being paid because I heard it from the horse's mouth. They used to tell me, TCS pays me so much, Wipro pays me so much, HCL, should I go, should I not go? And what more do you need for the business model? I mean, you have a revenue number and you have a cost number, and the difference between them was pretty big. So it was not very difficult for us to understand that part of it and set up our business in software services. Initially, a software services business was pretty much what one would call as body shopping. So we had a whole lot of people, 200, 300 people working for us almost exclusively in the Bay Area for most of the big companies. So we ratcheted that number up to about 600, 700 people in the Bay Area before we got down to setting up a software development business in India. So we acquired a couple of companies, we set up our own development business, we built out the structures, and but the gap was about 8 years. We knew we were feeding into the services business, so it was not really a huge brainstorming idea to come up with setting it up ourselves. The only thing that kept us away from it for that long was because we did not want our own customers to see us as competitors. And that's the reason it took us 8 years to build ourselves out significantly in education before we looked at services as a business model. And even then we kept it completely away. Both of them ran from 2 different buildings, 2 different teams, 2 different logos, 2 different HR. was completely kept separate.
So the next question is, as a venture capitalist, what are some of the promising industries that you see, maybe in the 5-10 years which coming?
Okay, here is the philosophy with which we invest. We invest very early stage. Some of our investments are into companies where we have helped the promoters register the company, take shares. So we have gone extreme early stage. We have worked with people to put together their business plan and then help them build out the businesses. We look for an exit 4 to 5 years later. So when we make investments today, we look at what would become big 5 years later and not what's big today. And that requires a lot of macro understanding of different sectors. So before we even look at companies, we understand those sectors for ourselves extremely well, understand what are the big trends, understand where we think it could be 5 years from now, and then we identify a sector. And once that is done, then we look for companies, ideas, promoters in that sector alone. So currently the things that we are looking at are agriculture is big, cloud database was big 2 years ago. We think the next 3 years it's going to peak. So we have made investments a couple of years ago. We're not anymore making in clouds database. We're waiting for exits there. We continue to look at education. We think there are new facets that are emerging. So we are looking at investments but in very new ideas in education. Dairy is something that we think is interesting. So we have put a bunch of investments in that area. Infrastructure, we think it's a good time to invest now. So we are planning to put some money in infrastructure. We are putting money in technology. Again, not technology as a services, but we are trying to look for new angles in technology. We think there are some new ideas that are coming. So those are sort of areas that we currently play in, and in each one we try to go depth. So if it's agriculture, or agriculture is growing seeds, fertilizer, we look at all aspects of it and do very early stage.
So this is how do students like us understand these trends? Could you just give us an example of a past investment and how you spotted the trend and how it followed through?
One of them would be, for instance, agriculture. I mean, I'm trying to take an example which is so far from the experiences that I have had. I have never grown anything in my life. The only time I have come in touch with this is when I actually eat stuff. So it's so far away. But the big trends that we looked at are the following. Population continues to go up. Consumerism continues to go up. So if you look at the feeding habits of people, per head consumption, for instance, in the US over the last 50 years has tripled. So consumerism is up. People are consuming a lot more, people are wasting a lot more, which is different aspect, but end of the day the reality is the per capita consumption is going up, the number of heads, number of mouths to be fed are going up, and because of a general wealth effect that we are seeing now in the developing countries, which will only add to it, and we think when places like Africa sort of come out the curve, which is starting to happen, they will add to the number of people who will get into this consumer game. So we think there is going to be a lot of demand for what we call as roti and kapda, because those are basics. So even in the toughest of industries, people will eat, people will put some clothes. So we sort of get in there, and we knew in about 5 years it would become important. So if you had cultivable land, cultivated land, say 1 million acres, where you are growing stuff, then people will pay anything to buy you out in 5 years. So typically that's sort of how we study, and then we go in depth in terms of technology happening in terms of seeds, is productivity going up, soil condition, water, weather, global warming. So we look at a whole lot of factors, and then once we do that, we aggressively get in a number of investments in that area. So agriculture was one. We put money in cotton. We currently have about 50,000 acres cotton cultivation in Africa, and we have a 60% ownership. Obviously there are a bunch of people who are building it out, the promoters, entrepreneurs who are doing it. We are now starting to look at seeds, we are looking at fertilizers, a few other areas around it. Yeah, so we look at big trends, identify a sector and go after it.
So, sir, how do you take the decision on whether to support a business or a startup idea or not? Basically, if there are entrepreneurs here and if they had to come to pitch to you, what would you look at?
The first that we look for is it has to be in the sector that we are working on. So if it's, so it tends to become easy. If it's not in any of the sectors, then we usually don't look at it. For no other reason except that we haven't done our homework. It's not because the idea is bad. So I have seen people who have sent me great ideas, just that we haven't done our homework. So it's not fair for us to comment on a business plan when I don't know anything about the sector. So first, we validate whether it's in the sector that we have understood. Then we want to understand where the entrepreneur comes from. Usually they come through somebody. Rarely do people directly talk to me and come. It's always coming through a reference. So obviously that adds a bit of value. The third thing is we want to understand whether there is a fire in the belly. Is this guy trying to do something where if it works, that's good. If it doesn't work, we tried. We are looking for people with fire in the belly, because early stage businesses go through lots of ups and downs. So, and there's a lot more downs in the first few years than ups. And when things are down, if you have this hunger to grow, then you will find a way up. But if you are the guy who is saying, I tried my best, it's not working, so I'm going to hang up my shoes and go away, then things fail. So we look for that. And the last is, what is driving this man? We want to understand what's driving it. Is it an absolute passion to make it happen, come rain or shine, is what we look for. And then we look at the business plan. Because we know the sector. We are interested in the sector. So he does not have to convince us on saying the market for agriculture in the world is so much, in India it is so much, and we already know all of that. So it makes it very easy in terms of a decision making once we understand the person. So the person is a big factor in our decision making, not so much on the business plan.
So, so the last question. So they ask, what is your success mantra? And I'd like to follow up with another question. What is your daily schedule like?
As I said, I like to learn a lot of new things. So some of the things I have, and running is a big part of something that I have learned much after my IIT. IIT I used to do 5K runs. You start from the hostel, head towards the gate, but nothing beyond. So running is something that I picked up early 2000. I've stuck on with it. Now I do a lot of marathon runs. And again, what excites me is the challenge. I want to know that I can complete. I want to know I can compete, whatever it takes. So currently I'm on to doing, I was just telling somebody, I'm on to doing these big 6 majors in terms of marathons. So last year September I did Berlin. Just a couple of weeks ago I did the Tokyo Marathon. I'm hoping to get a seat to run in the London Marathon. All registrations are closed. I'm trying through all channels. I've registered for the New York in November. Next year I'm planning to do Chicago and Boston. So that's sort of 6 majors. Pretty tough, each one, in terms of qualification, all of that. The run is tough. But, so I took that up as a challenge. When I finished my first marathon, it was like 6.5 hours. My fastest has been 3 hours and 5 minutes. Um, so, it's a question of learning something new, challenge. So, a lot of my day begins with exercise. I do a whole lot of different things. I do spin cycle, I go out and run, I run on treadmills, I do a lot of TRX, I do whole variety of them. I've got a dedicated trainer at home who comes at 5 in the morning and works with me, and comes at 5:30 in the evening and works with me most of the days. One of the newest skills that I'm learning, and that's something I was sort of introspecting a couple of weeks ago along with a bunch of my friends in Kuala Lumpur. So one of the things we were doing for ourselves is, what drives each one of us. So one of the things I sort of self-discovered was what drives me is a lot of challenge. Anything new, challenge. So one of the new skills I very recently picked up was dancing. So
any particular form?
Some Sangeet happened, how these marriages are. So one of the extended family was getting married. This was 3 months ago, and we were a bunch of us at home, extended family, having a drink, and after you have had, after you have crossed your 5th, 6th drink, you don't know what you're committing yourself to. And so the girl's mom asked me, Suresh, you said you'll do something unique. So I said, you know what, I'll dance. And she ensured the next day morning when I woke up, the first thing she told me was, you know what, you committed to dancing. And that's when I thought, oh heck. So, but once that was done, I found the best trainer in the city, got him to come home, set up a schedule, and 1 month later, we danced in the wedding. Some people around, I heard they actually liked what they saw, but I haven't seen it myself. But so after that, I actually realized that I like learning that skill, and I know how to work it. I know what moves work, what doesn't work, when, how, music, rhythm, all of that. So I went back to the trainer. Now I set up a schedule for the next 2 years, saying there are 12 different forms of dancing, starting from tango, salsa, waltz, ballroom, and I said I want to learn all of them. So I put a 2-year schedule, and he comes evenings, Saturday and Sunday, 5 to 7, and I learn. So that's something that happens in my life. I go to a lot of temples. Twice a month I go to temples. So most of the temples in Tamil Nadu, Kerala, I've seen. So that's something that I do. And obviously it means I structure my business in a fashion that it will accommodate all of what I'm doing. I still go home at 4 in the evening for a cup of coffee, which means obviously my home is like 5 minutes away from where I work. And for me, a lot of those things are very sacrosanct. I sit with my daughter and see one of these TV shows in the evenings along with her. I see some movies with my son. So all of them are sacrosanct. So my life is pretty much filled up starting from 5 in the morning going till about 11 o'clock in the night. Those are stuff I love doing. A lot of them are things that I'm learning, new stuff.
Thank you. So now we'll throw the floor open to questions.
Hi Suresh, my name is Ramaswamy. I belong to the 1999 batch. A comment and a question. My comment is that I too didn't run when I was in IIT. Recently I've started running. Until 3 months back, I didn't believe that I could finish a 10K event. But in the last 3 months I've ran 3 half marathons. So I identify with, and it does teach you what you just said. So I agree with that. That's my comment.
So you did the Oroville?
Yeah, I did the Oroville, which I thought was fantastic.
Good, great run.
Oroville, and then I went to Goa and did a run there. My question is, you spoke about investing in agriculture. Agriculture productivity is also related to energy intensity and energy supply, particularly in developing countries like India. So my question to you is, do you also look at energy as well as a sector, or alternate energy as a sector for investment?
We did look at solar, and we looked at wind. Solar I spent almost 2 years, and then I gave up. because we are not very comfortable with the rest of the trends that was evolving. So we didn't think it was creating an opportunity which would go big 5 years later. This was 2 years ago. And we looked at all aspects of it. So we looked at using CCl4 to silicon tetrachloride, to how do I create pure silicon, to cutting, to wafers, to everything. And we didn't think there was a business model. I visited innumerable number of companies. I went to Germany, I went to Spain, where a whole lot of things were happening. Went to a lot of these symposiums, conferences, seminars, visited companies in Coimbatore, in Hyderabad, in West Bengal. Went through it end to end. Numbers just didn't add up. Because there was a whole lot of government subsidy involvement. And those things are based on policy changes that can happen anytime. We have seen that happening in Spain, where the entire industry went out through the door when the policy changed and the Spanish government got into a trouble. They switched off subsidies, and people were just caught on the wrong foot. The whole industry caved in. So anything to do with government policy, and this one was so dependent on it. So after studying all of it, we took our hands off, saying, it's not ready for an early stage investing. You could go in with big capital, like some of the big groups are now doing, some of the power companies are doing, after the government came out with some regulations on some percentage being alternate energy. So there are some big groups that are putting big capital, but they are aligned businesses. From our perspective, we go early stage, we put money, and we want this to grow big. And that was not there in the alternate energy space, whether it is wind or solar. I know I also spent a bit of time in understanding Jetropa. In fact, I met with GK here to understand whether there is something that's happening at IIT Biotech where we can leverage on some patent that was there for some type of a thing that we could use and grow. So we spent about 6-8 months even on biofuels, and we didn't think it was ready for an early stage. Maybe it would never be an early stage thing. It could be highly capital intensive. But we studied, we didn't do it.
Good evening, sir. My name is Kaushik. I'm doing 4th year chemical engineering. I have 2 questions for you. The first question is, how do you stop yourself from making emotional decisions based on investing in something? And the second question is, when you invest in something, seeing it from an investment point of view is very different from the business owners or the person doing the business. So how do you tackle the ups and downs of a new venture when they are going through a tough phase? You said any new business has a lot of ups and downs. So how do you stop yourself from quitting from the investment very early?
As an early stage investing, 4 to 5 years is actually early. People exit in 10 years. We exit in 4 to 5 years. Emotional decisions, you can't afford to make an emotional decision. In any business, you can't afford to take an emotional decision. And this is just sharing from my own personal experience. I never do emotional decisions. In fact, I have found myself wanting in not having emotions at all in decisions. So here was an instance when we actually sold SSI. And when the actual sale was put through, I know it was on a Sunday when it was signed, and I was actually in Singapore with a bunch of about 5-6 of my friends. So I did the closing call while I was having lunch with them, and all it took me was 5 minutes to sell. After I came back to Madras, I think my son must have seen it somewhere on the papers. It was flashed obviously on papers that we had sold. He actually came very quietly a couple of days later. He came to me and said, "But Appa, I saw you had sold SSI. I thought it was something that was part of like family, and you sold it off." It didn't even strike me. When I made the decision to sell, all it was we were negotiating a number. We had an offer at 800, and I said at 1,000 crores I will close. And when the offer came, I signed and closed. I didn't even think beyond. but emotional you can never be. You will only make wrong decisions. Number 2 is, when you make investments, you got to be detached from the investment. You can't get too close to it. Like every other business, you can't get too involved because it's not your business, right? So you are an investor in a business. There is somebody who is running the business, and you got to ensure you maintain that distance, and you don't get too much attached, because it will become an issue when you want to sell. Usually the selling is based on, and again, this is a very common thing people don't understand. You can only sell when somebody wants to buy. It's so easily said, but a lot of people don't understand it. So it's not a question of selling, valuation. You can only sell when somebody is interested in buying. If there is no interest to buy, it doesn't matter what the price is. It's not going anywhere. So you got to wait for an opportunity when there is a big interest to buy, and then you very quickly exit. Again, sharing from our own experience, we are one of the earliest investors in microfinance. This was 5 years ago. And while our view was 4 years to 5 years of exit, we exited in 2.5 years. And this was before SKS Microfinance went for a listing. So we read all the signs, and we didn't like it. For whatever reason, we saw a great exuberance in the market. Everybody wanted to have a piece of microfinance. So we sold it to Sequoia in about 2.5 years. So, and I know the promoters very well. I know them from the Cholamandalam days. Great friends. They continue to be great friends. But we just sold. We just sold and exited. So in retrospect, the timing was good, but we sort of saw it coming. So you can't be emotional, and you got to be detached from your investment, because you are an investor. You are not the operating business owner.
Hello, sir, my name is Alex. Sir, I've got 2 questions for you. One is, you said you are an early stage VC investor, as in you invest in companies which are pretty early stage. So what is the kind of traction that you're looking for in an early stage company that would fit into your criteria? That's the first question. Second question is, you also said that you're looking into education market. So in the education sector, what kind of companies are you looking for? Are you looking for platform-based companies? Are you looking at online education? Is that kind of companies are you looking for? Are you looking for like offline tutor-based companies?
In terms of early stage, again to reiterate, what we look for is the person. In a number of cases, we have helped the entrepreneur put together the business plan. So I have a team that will work with him to actually put together the business plan. So some of the people whom I have met have an idea of what they want to do, not very sure of what the business plan is or where the money is. Since we understand this sector extremely well, because we have put in more homework, we understand it better, we help them put together the business plan if we believe this guy is in it for the long haul. If he's in it for the long haul, then we do the homework, we put together the business plan, and then we make the investment. We do the stock option plan, sweat equity, we do the whole 9 yards. The second one, in terms of education, so here is our take on the education markets. We think the market is going through doldrums currently. It's at a low point. A lot of so here are the benchmark indicators. Most of the listed companies in that space in education have lost 95% of their valuation. Some of them have not lost 99%, some of them have lost 96%, all of them have lost 95% or more of their valuation. The unlisted companies where there are a lot of PE investments that have happened, each and every one of them, the investors are looking for the door to exit and not finding any. They want to exit, they have been stuck in this for the last 5 years, 6 years, 7 years. They want to exit, they have no exits. They're all stuck. And what that essentially means that there is no money in the sector. Listed companies have no money, their only currency, which is their market cap, has eroded 95%, so they got nothing and they got no credibility in the markets. Money that can come from PE guys, the PE guys are all looking for exit doors. They are not looking for investments. They would rather go invest in cloud computing or a Flipkart. They are not going to put money in education. They have put money 5 years ago. Their funds are going to a closure in 7-8 years, and they are desperately looking for exits, come whatever price, which means there is no money. So that's as far as where the money is. But if you look at the business, if you look at 2000, fast forward now, if you look at IT companies, their recruitment levels have gone up 5 times compared to what it was 10 years ago. The same IT sector is recruiting 5 times more people. And then you got insurance that's grown 20 times. You got retail that has just boomed 100 times in terms of the number of people that they are taking. And each one are looking at an extreme early stage of growth. The retail is just happening in India. The insurance in terms of professionalism and depth is just happening in India. So in terms of requirement for educated trained people has gone multifold in the last 10 years, which means it would seem that it's a no-brainer that a lot of money should be going into it. But strangely, the way the financial world is set up, no money is in that sector and every money wants to get out. So this is a great time to go into that sector and do what we call a roll-up. There are a lot of businesses available for throwaway prices, which are great businesses because this industry will turn. And our view is in 5 years, you could, if you go in now, do a fantastic roll-up, you could see returns of between 20 to 30 times in 5 years. If you do your job right, you put all this together, integrate it, and we see an online as a significant component of that. Because the way cell phones happened in India, we were nowhere 10 years ago and suddenly we are in the top 5 10 years later. So it just boom happened. We think online education has not happened in India for various reasons in the last 10-15 years, but those reasons are all going away. Bandwidth was an issue, not anymore. You didn't have to do a leased line to do online. 3G is now almost there everywhere. Smartphones are almost there everywhere. So all of the enabling factors are all coming in place, and in India we are starting to find that time is of value. You can't afford to just travel for 3 hours to a physical place to sit down and study is not on. If I can just do it online, I would. People are a lot more used to online today than they were 10 years ago. So online would be a factor. A lot of physical offline education combined with an online model all wrapped together with a 360-degree experience would be big. And we think in 5 years it's going to give terrific returns. So we think education market for very different sets of reasons with very prime setup for a roll-up. So we are currently in fact trying to, this is not a startup, since it's a roll-up, it's going to be a lot of buyouts. So we are sort of currently trying to put together a fund between $150 $200 million to go after this market and do a quick roll-up.
As a successful entrepreneur and having sold companies, having been involved in many different areas, especially in the film industry, have you ever been approached by the local politician for a contribution, and how do you handle such pressures?
Happens all the time. Under the guise of as a patron, so if somebody comes to you saying, sir, you are a great guy in the movie industry, you have produced some of the best movies, and if, God forbid if this guy is wearing a white vesti and comes with a dhoti, you are done for. You know where he is coming from. All this encomiums that is being steeped up on you is all coming down to saying, sir, if we should come to power, we will do much more for this industry. So I am sure as a patron, well-wisher, I am sure you are dying to make a contribution. So effectively saying, if you don't make the contribution, you might probably effectively die. So we keep getting this all the time. So one of the things that we do is we stopped giving individuals. We actually give to the parties, and we pay by check, and we declare it. Now, at least some changes have happened. They are saying that you can set up a trust as a company and officially you can give it to parties. You can do funding officially and you can announce it to the world, and it is now legally okay. So you can set up a trust, put money in the trust and write checks to all the parties. So, but we do it at the party level. So we don't entertain local guys saying I'm standing for MLA, MP, nobody. We directly contribute to party. And generally we contribute to top 5 parties, all of them, just to ensure we don't take sides or we are not seen as taking sides. And especially, most of the other industries it's okay, but in Tamil Nadu, the movie industry is so tightly linked with, with the political system here, so you can't even afford to be caught on the wrong foot. So we contribute equally across all parties.
I appreciate very much giving such a frank and open, free answer.
Sir, you are playing in all the sectors which have got huge scope of social impact as well. For example, education, agriculture, dairy. So, do you have, some lookout for social returns as well, or is it just financial returns you are looking at?
There are different ways in which this is played. I know there are funds that are set up which invest in companies that have social impact. I know there are a number of funds which are there, expressly set up to invest in businesses that create social impact. We are not set up like that. My investments are based on returns, nothing else. That it has a social impact is a nice to have, happenstance. That was not the game. I would have loved to say, that's exactly how. That was not at all. So we go into, sectors where we think there's the biggest bang for the buck. Otherwise, we wouldn't be there. Anything that has a social impact, I would love to do. We are doing a few, but that is not done as an investment. That's given as something that I want to give back. So we are doing something in education where we are sort of giving back. We are trying and improving infrastructure in some localities as a way of giving back, but those are not investments. They are just you want to give back to create some social impact. But they are two separate things.
Let's thank Suresh for a very.
Thank you.
And can I ask his batchmate GK to hand him a memento? Hey, thanks everyone for coming.